What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. And for those of you that are new, welcome. I kind of want to talk to you today. I want to help you buy maybe your first electric guitar. I want to give you 5 things that'll help you along in that decision. I'm going to give you some practical things with the instrument itself, as well as some other things to think about, so that hopefully you can have a good experience buying your first electric guitar. And whether, well, let's just get into it. Before we get started, I want to thank my Patreon supporters, patreon.com/DylanTalksTone. You make a lot of these videos possible. In fact, even having this guitar right here to show you and some others in this video, as well as other things we got going on over there. Patreon supporters and YouTube members get discounts on stuff at DylanTalksTone.com when they buy pickups and stuff, so remember that. And then also check out the links in the description for a lot of the instruments that we're going to look at today, as well as DylanTalksTone.com, because we don't really have sponsors around here. So go check that out. We make pickups. That's our real job. So go check that out. And in fact, the tele pickups that are in this guitar right here. So 5 things that you should do or know when buying your first electric guitar. Actually, if you're going to buy your 5th or 10th or 100th or your first, all of these things actually apply. So this could apply to the rest of us as well. First of all, very first thing, number 1 I want you to do before doing anything, ignore the internet. What do I mean by that, and why do I say that? Well, when we buy a product, probably our first instinct is to go to some forum, go to some Facebook group, go to Amazon reviews, and say, what does, Consumer Reports brain, how many red circles does this guitar have? How many stars does this guitar have? What should I buy? What am I, and do all this market research and trying to figure out which is the best one for the money and all of that kind of stuff. I would ignore all of that. To start with, I would completely ignore everything. I would not get into Facebook groups and say, should I buy this guitar? Should I buy that guitar? Because you're going to get probably more negative than positive reinforcement for any of your choices. There's going to be people with loud voices for or against anything, but a lot of times they'll find things to be critical about basically whatever choice that you're about to make. So this is a choice that you need to make. So completely ignore the internet. The reasons that you're buying this instrument are personal to you, right? Why are you buying this instrument? It could be that you think they're cool and you want to collect them. It could be that it's a creative reason that you want to learn to play guitar and you want to develop a skill and you are very interested. Maybe you like music. Maybe you saw an artist on TikTok. Maybe you saw an artist on the VMAs. I don't know, and you were inspired to buy an instrument, and therefore I want to do it. I'm excited about this. Those are your reasons and your reasons alone. And what will happen if you get on the internet and let the internet talk to you too much is that people will minimize your reasons for buying your guitar with your money. And so make sure that you don't allow that to happen to yourself, that you stay true to yourself and the reasons that you want to buy the instrument. Speaking of that, one of the big things that will come up if you do kind of surf around on the internet is understand that no matter the guitar you buy, where it's made, what it costs, how fancy it is, all that kind of stuff, your playing ability has nothing to do with it. Your ability to buy or not buy a particular guitar at a particular price point has nothing to do with it. If you are a beginner guitar and you want to go and spend $5,000 on your first guitar, you go and do that. People that say, well, I'm not good enough to own X or Y, or you should just buy this guitar because you're not good enough to own. Ignore that in yourself and ignore that from other people. You don't need those self-limiting beliefs for yourself, And you also don't need those self-limiting beliefs from somebody else. You don't need somebody else's self-limiting beliefs to limit yours. If you want to spend $5,000 on a new guitar that is super duper fancy and has all kinds of stuff that you think you might not need, but you just think it's cool, then go ahead and do it. Don't limit yourself based on, well, I'm a beginner, so I don't deserve to. You see what I'm saying? Stay away from all of that stuff, because that attitude is going to keep you from any kind of creativity. It's going to keep you from diving into this thing that you should love and be doing for fun, right? So don't allow people to take that fun from you, and don't allow yourself to be limited by others to take that fun from you, right? Like, attack this, enjoy this, right? No matter what level of guitar it is, no matter where it's made, no matter what, doesn't matter. Don't let anybody limit that from you. Whether it's a $200 guitar from China or it's a $5,000 custom built guitar, it doesn't matter. Don't let anybody else take that joy from you. All right, number 2, look at everything, okay? Look at every guitar. Even if, we're not gonna talk a lot about price right now, but even if you're limited on your budget, okay, let's not even put a dollar amount on it. If you have set a limit for on your budget for any reason, whether it's what you can afford or it's what you choose to invest. Like, sometimes we can afford something, but we don't want to invest more than X or Y into something yet, right? So no matter what that number is, look at everything. If you have a relatively low budget, and that can be different for everyone, and you've got to stay within that, or you've chosen to stay within that, look at things far outside of that budget. Look at everything. Look at all the guitars. Look at everything. Look at $5,000 guitars. Look at $10,000 guitars. Look at custom shop guitars. Look at $200 guitars. Look at every price point in between, just to see what's out there. It doesn't mean that you're ever going to buy that guitar. It doesn't mean that that you are choosing to buy that guitar right now. It doesn't mean that you're coveting somebody else's stuff. It just means you're trying to familiarize yourself with what is available. This does 2 things. One, it keeps the creative juices flowing because you want to understand what's out there. It keeps the exploration of this hobby, which should always be happening, right? You should never just get in one groove and stay in it and never, right? Like, we always want to be growing. So understand what is to grow into. If you're only going to buy a very inexpensive, maybe entry-level guitar, understand what's out there so that you understand what your growth pattern could be in the future. Understand where you could be. Wonder what you could aspire to own in the future if that's what you want to do. Do you want to collect more than one guitar? Do you want to have this guitar and then maybe add to that collection and then maybe flip it or do whatever? Understand what's out there. Understand everything. Don't just say, well, I need to stay within this budget, therefore I'm going to ignore everything else. It's very helpful for the future and thinking about yourself as a person and growing in this instrument, growing in this hobby, to look at everything. Look at everything. I do that. There are things that are way outside of my budget, but when I have a chance to go and play those guitars, I still do. And I still look at stuff that I can't afford, because someday maybe I will be able to. And maybe it helps me to understand what I own. And maybe it helps me to understand the modifications that I might want to make as I grow in this hobby by seeing what else is out there, even if I don't have it, right? It's not wanting what we don't have, but it's just understanding what's out there so that we can understand our own growth in the hobby. It's really important. And I know this stuff is a little like woo-woo for some people, and some people are going to think this is super stupid, but this is creative, right? Everything we're doing about this is creative. We want to be creative with this. And we want to learn, and we want to learn a hobby. This is like, learning to play guitar is a huge self-improvement move. And it's an investment in ourselves. And so thinking about it from this perspective, I think, is really, really helpful. Okay, number 3, this is where it starts to get a little more difficult. Choose a brand. If you're going to buy your next guitar or your first guitar, choose what brand you're going to buy. And this could be a little overwhelming because there are tons and tons and tons of brands out there, right? Now there are the bigger brands who, it's kind of where it all started, right? So we think of Fender, we think of Gibson, and then later on we think of PRS, and then maybe there's some other brands that have offshoot from there. So there are these main brands, right? And then amongst those we have kind of the sub brands. So the entry level and budget versions of each of those brands. So Fender has Squier, for example. Gibson has Epiphone. PRS has their SE line. So think about those brands and think about what you want. My suggestion would be for your first guitar, stay with something familiar. There's a lot of off brands, there's a lot of import brands that are like copies and copies and copies of copies. There's where you're going to run into, when we start talking about the practical things, and we're going to get into the actual instrument itself in a minute, there's where you're going to run into a little more uncertainty. There's where you're going to run into a little more uncertainty with consistency between instruments, consistency between brands, and you're going to have a lot more unknowns. If you stay with a lot of kind of the main brands, so Fender, Squier, Gibson, Epiphone, PRS, and their SE line, and what else? There's some other ones like that. That I would recommend doing that at first, because then you have this familiarity and this reference, right? And so you have an association with, like, for example, this is an American-made, very premium Fender Telecaster, but you can very easily then take a Squier version of this instrument and have that reference and be able to work back and forth and just make sure it's easier. The other thing is, because it takes a lot of the uncertainty out of it. The other thing is they will also, guitar playing is aspirational, okay? So it's easier to say, you know what, I have a Fender Squier and I really want this guitar, or I really want a custom shop Fender, so thinking about the aspirations for the future, like think of it like the poster on your wall when you're a kid. Nobody, I'm not going to say nobody, but most people aspire to have a pretty cool thing. And so it's harder to do that with a lot of this off-brand stuff. I would say stay with some of the main ones, and the consistency will be there as well, which we'll get into here in a minute and why that's important. I should say that's not to say that you'll never explore brands that you're not familiar with, but I think if you start with something that you are familiar with and then use that as a reference, then when you expand into other brands you're not familiar with, then like I said, you'll have a reference that you're familiar. It'll be easier to be like, do I want to go this direction to this thing I've never heard of? Because I have this, and now I can, you know what I mean? You can make those comparisons and be able to do this yourself. Again, this is not relying on the internet. This is not relying on a bunch of people in a forum to tell you something, because they're going to say stuff based on their own personal biases, and they're not you, right? It's not their money. They're not you, and they don't have the experience that you've now built with this brand that you've chosen, Squier or Epiphone or Gibson or Fender or Martin or whatever it is, and then now you personally have this, how it feels, what you like. Nobody on the internet can tell you that. So it's very helpful to do that. Number 4, and this is going to be a tough one too, choose your retailer. So choose where to buy the guitar. This may be a brick and mortar shop in your town, right? Which is always awesome. If you have one that you feel you can support. In my town, I don't really have a brick and mortar store that I feel I can support regularly, and so I end up having to buy online. So I use Sweetwater, but if you're gonna buy in a brick and mortar store, there's a couple of real important things. One, make sure that they are helpful and supportive. And when I say supportive, I mean supportive of the decisions that you're making. If you're a beginner instrument player, a beginner guitar player, and you want to go and spend $5,000 on a guitar, they might talk you out of that. Don't let them do that. If they're not supportive of your decisions because you're trying to make this decision for yourself, then be real careful of that. Make sure that you are getting what you want, and you're not getting talked into something that you don't want, because this is your thing, right? So make sure that they support you in that. And then of course with lessons and all that kind of stuff, that's very helpful. So that's super cool with a local shop. So that can be very helpful. Plus you're supporting a local business, which is really, really awesome. Now if you're going to buy online, then basically the only thing you really got to worry about is service before the sale and service after the sale. Hopefully they have a good return policy, because buying online, obviously there are some uncertainties there, and so you want to make sure, especially depending on how much money you're spending, that the return policy is good, and make sure that their quality control coming to you is as good as it can be. As far as like making sure you don't get stuff that's broke or not good. And so I'm going to show you here in a minute some things that I would check when you get your new guitar. That is really important. That's why I use Sweetwater. I know people think that whole check thing is bogus, the 35 check thing they do or whatever, but at least I know that the guitar is going to mostly basically be functional when I get it. That's what I hope anyway, above a certain price point, $350 or whatever it is. And also the thing is, I have had guitars come damaged, for example, and I just call them up at Sweetwater and they just return it and send me a new one, and it's super easy, right? So find somebody. It doesn't have to be Sweetwater, but that's personally who I use. Make sure that they've got a good return policy, good customer service, and somebody that you can talk to when you have an issue. We buy a lot of stuff online these days, therefore it shouldn't be any different with an instrument, right? It shouldn't be any different. Not in 2025. All right, number 5. When you get your guitar, go over it. Go over it really well. Now, if number 4 is good, if you've got a good local store and you've got a good retailer or a good online retailer, this is going to go pretty well, okay? So when you get your guitar, go over it. Make sure that the finish is nice. Make sure that you don't... Here's a couple things I check. I like to check to make sure there's no cracks around the neck joint right here, because the finish can crack right here. I like to make sure that, and we have videos on basic guitar setup, I like to just make sure that the guitar is relatively close. Now, a guitar setup should be done by a professional or by you if you feel like tackling it. We have a bunch of videos about it for every new guitar. You may get a guitar and the action may be too high. You may get a guitar and it might buzz a little bit because the temperature and humidity change through travel. Don't expect a guitar to show up 100% perfectly set up for you. That's not how it works. They come to kind of like an industry standard, and then they're subject to weather and stuff. So if you pull it out of the box and it's not 100% perfect setup-wise, that can be fixed super easy, right? And so your local store will probably have somebody that can do that for you, or you can watch some videos. We have a bunch on this channel and you can do it yourself. If you're not familiar or comfortable with that, just take it to somebody. It's a few bucks, they'll set it up for you, and it'll be totally fine. Don't stress about that too much. But what I want to tell you about is make sure that all the parts are tight. Make sure that when you run your finger down the side of the fretboard that you don't have a bunch of really sharp edges, right? Check every note. On every string, and make sure you don't have any crazy buzzes or anything. Now, if the setup's a little off, you might have a couple of little ones, but what we don't want to have is some high frets. We don't want to have a wavy fretboard, anything like that. Make sure that the knobs all work. Make sure that the switches all work. Make sure that the pickups work. Make sure that the jack isn't falling out, right? Like that it's actually in there correctly. Make sure that, like I said, make sure that the finish is good. And then make sure that the tuners function. Especially on more inexpensive guitars, sometimes these can be a little loose and have some slop in them and stuff. So just make sure of that. But here's the thing. Whether the guitar is $5,000 or the guitar is $200, it does not matter. When you pull it out of the box, everything should function. Quality control and a functional instrument is not subjective to price. It is like any other product. It is like a vacuum cleaner. It is like a toaster. It is like a microwave. If you pull it out of the box and you have a function that does not work, return it. Do not put up with it. Now, if it's a setup thing and it's within the adjustments of the bridge and the nut and the truss rod and the pickup adjustment, then that's adjustment. But if it's outside of adjustment range, then return the guitar. 100% return the guitar. It doesn't matter if it's $200 or $5,000. Quality of the instrument itself, as far as it being functional and the basic things, should not be subjective to price. You should not say, well, this guitar is only $200, so therefore I can put up with. No, return it. If it's $5,000 and it has that problem, return it. There should never be a conversation that says, well, I paid X amount of dollars, so it should be. No, no matter what, $200, $5,000. If the guitar doesn't work, if there's a problem, if it's got sharp fret ends and it's going to cut you up, if you've got a fret sticking up and you'll never get that thing to work right, send the guitar back. 100%. Don't post about it on the internet. Don't make big noise. But if you chose if you chose the right retailer, it will be very easy. And you'll return it. You'll tell them what the issue is. They'll either repair it or replace it. You'll get a new one in the mail and everything will be fine. And you may have lost a couple of days, but other than that, no big deal. So just do that, and so inspect the guitar and make sure that it is functionally there. Now, you might say, well, I don't have the experience to do that. I would say that every person who's bought a product in 2025, they have a pretty good feel, right? Now, if it's not in adjustment, you might not understand how much a guitar can adjust, right? So if you've got a high string or whatever, but you can tell, man, that's sharp. I don't think that's supposed to be sharp, right? Oh, that nut is sticking out right there. I don't think that's supposed to stick out. You know what I mean? Like, you can tell very basic things like that, and that's all that you need to know. That's all that you need to know. It doesn't need to be complicated. Now, in 2025, guitar quality, contrary to what a lot of forums, this is why I stay away from this stuff, a lot of forums and Facebook groups and stuff will tell you guitar quality is extremely consistent, right? Doesn't matter the brand. When we talk about the main brands, so Gibson, PRS, Fender, even a lot of the bigger import brands. So we talk about like Schecter, Ibanez, a lot of the more reputable brands, their quality control is really good. And so if you have a good retailer, because here's how this works. The manufacturer has a standard for quality, and then the retailer should have a standard for quality. And if they're passing through junk to you, don't buy from them. So the guitar should be fairly consistent, whether it's a Gibson Les Paul, whether it's a Squire, whether it's this made in Mexico Stratocaster over here, whether it's this American Telecaster, whether it's a $400 Squire, a $300 Squire, a $200 Squire. I've got a $139 Squire in the other room that I bought on Amazon. It's fantastic, okay? Guitars are very consistent in 2025. Don't let the internet tell you otherwise. So if you have a problem, just return it, but chances are you're not gonna. Chances are it's gonna be okay. And chances are anything that you don't like about the guitar, high action or whatever, will be within the level of adjustment that you can do with a setup. I hope that this idea of having this conversation about the mentality of buying an instrument, thinking about how to approach buying the instrument, and thinking about how to make this instrument yours, and this is your purchase, this is your money, don't let anybody else affect it, right? It's really important to think about that. Don't let anybody else affect it. And then don't stress about the guitar itself. Do you want a cool guitar? Do you want a pink guitar? Do you want a green guitar? Do you want a blue guitar? Do you want it this shape? Do you want it that shape? Do you want it that shape? Doesn't matter how much it costs. Do you want it that this artist played it and it inspires you? Do whatever inspires you. Buy the guitar that inspires you. It doesn't matter how much it costs, where it came from, anything. None of that matters. Don't worry about that. Don't get on a Facebook group and be like, well, this only has, or Amazon, or this only has 4 stars, and I'm not going to buy it. Some guy on Facebook says these are all crap. Some ding dong in some Facebook group says Gibson quality control sucks. No, it doesn't. Like, it just doesn't. One person will make a lot of noise and then cause a thing, and then therefore it's an inaccurate representation of reality. What really is the truth in 2025 is you can buy a guitar, you can get it 99% of the time, and honestly, actually, it is really about 95% of the time, because about 5% of guitars get returned. for some reason or less. That's kind of the industry standard. So 95% of the time you can reliably say your guitar is going to be totally fine. Okay? So don't worry about it. And have fun. Enjoy this. Don't get so bogged down in it by other people that you're losing the fact that it's New Guitar Day, man. New Guitar Day is like one of the funnest times of all. It's why we do this. We look forward to New Guitar Day to the next New Guitar Day. Like, it's super fun. And then playing it in between, right? So make sure that you don't lose the joy of that from what other morons on the internet are telling you, including me. Go do your own thing. If you like this video, like and subscribe. If you didn't like this video, we have a bunch of other videos, like 1,500 of them, that you probably like. If you don't agree, get in the comments and tell me about it. Be nice. Don't be a jerk, but be nice. But if you don't agree, get in the comments. And if you have more suggestions that are kind of in line with this, leave them in the description. We want as much input on this as possible to make it as easy as possible for your friend, my friend, or people that we don't even know to buy a new guitar. There you go. Check out Dylan Talks Tone. Thanks for hanging out. I know this was a little bit of a longer one, but this is really important. This is a really important concept. Thanks for hanging out. We'll see you in the next video.